Please welcome Sherry Strong.
Good morning, good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning to you who here woke up this morning before the alarm went off after about 6 or 7 hours of sleep, big smile on your face, hands above the covers, and had tons of energy, right? Yes, I love it when people get that joke. Other people, what does she mean by hands above the covers smiling? And wasn't on drugs. Okay, can I get a show of hands? You know, we are not just suffering from an obesity crisis, which today the news reported that global obesity is costing the planet $2 trillion. It's rivaling terrorism. And for anyone who's actually been there, who's been obese, it is terrifying. It's a terrifying experience to actually be in a body that nature did not intend for you, that you were not meant to be. And I know this because even though Julie had mentioned these wonderful things that I've done in life, I have actually been twice my size. Not 10'4", in case some of you are actually wondering if I had one of those height reductions. And I literally started the morning off with half a liter of Sara Lee Ultra Chocolate ice cream. I know some of you, I can see some of your jaws dropping, even in the blackout of the audience. You're asking yourself, how did you stop at half a liter, right? Yeah, no, self-control, willpower, it was awesome, okay? So I actually understand acutely the things that actually go on in the body when you are carrying way too much weight. And to get to the point of obesity, you actually have to eat a lot of unnatural foods. And it's not just the sickness that comes with it, the headaches, the migraines, the pre-diabetic symptoms, all those aches and pains and issues that you have to actually push down and suppress in order to eat to the point of becoming obese. But I also know what it feels like in the body, your self-esteem, how it impacts you, getting dressed and putting on clothing that is too tight for you. I remember, this is seriously, I got actually seriously delusional at one point. I was like, why is the dryer shrinking my underwear, not my husband's? It's really weird. And one time I actually put on a pair of pants. They were a size, I'm dating myself, this is quite a long time ago, but they were the pants that were really big, but you cinched up with a belt. And I remember growing into them and one time thinking, I've had these pants for 5 years. How did they shrink? And I grew into them. Being in a body that you weren't meant to be, feeling illness, is something that many millions of people around the globe suffer from. And one thing I also like to say to people is that it's not just being obese that puts you at risk. In fact, there's a lot of thin, what they refer to as fit, healthy people who are having symptoms or actually expressing things like heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. And when I was a nutritionist, I saw just as many thin people in my practice as I saw overweight people. And the problem is that if you are super fit and thin and you're eating what I call the lethal recipe, and the lethal recipe are the foods that are prepared in the same way, the ingredients that are prepared in the same way we take coca leaves and turn it into cocaine, opium sap and turn it into heroin. And it has a similar addictive and toxic effect on the body. And if thin people are eating this, particularly when they're restricting their fat and have super lean bodies, there's nowhere for those chemicals to go. See, fat cells are actually designed to take all those chemicals and keep them away from your vital organs. So if you're super fit and thin and you're eating a toxic, lethal recipe diet, it's actually, you're more vulnerable to disease than someone overweight, believe it or not. So it's kind of crazy. We've reached this point in humanity where we literally have more children dying due to complications from obesity than children starving, almost twice as many children. When I gave the TED Talk in Tokyo, I actually showed a picture of a woman who is in a refugee camp in Chad in Africa, who feeds her family on less what would have cost us $24 a week. And it was interesting to see that those children don't have diabetes, cancer, or heart disease, like our children do here in this country. And in fact, they've got great jaw development, beautiful teeth, no dental caries, and bright, shiny skin. They have certain other vulnerabilities to disease because of the environment they're living in, but they're not lifestyle diseases. And I thought, isn't it ironic that children in a refugee camp in Chad in Africa could actually be healthier than children here in private schools. I wonder if that woman, before she puts her plate out to her children at night, says, "Don't worry about finishing everything on your plate, kids, because there's obese kids in America." You see, our approach to food, we actually started to get fat when we started to introduce the concept of nutrition. You see, nature actually tells us what to eat and the quantities to eat it, and by how easily it's obtained in nature. It's what I call nature's principle. That which is most abundant in nature, we're meant to have the most of. Harder to obtain in nature, we're meant to have less of it. And nature makes us work harder for it. And we work off the energy in doing so. And the third group is if you cannot get it in nature, not only do we not need it, it's most likely harmful to the body and the environment. And so we see that as we move away from nature, the sicker we become. The less we actually have a connection to what we're eating, the sicker we become, and the more we eat out of context of nature. One of the TED Talk I gave in Tokyo, I talked about the consumption concept, and it's based on the fact that if you had to source your own food in nature, we would all in this room be eating completely different to how we eat now, including myself. Because when you have to source the food, when you gather it to actually eat it, you have a very different relationship to it. Okay, how much butter would you eat in a week if you had to go out and milk the cow, churn the butter, like separate the cream, churn the butter? We have a different relationship with it. When I ask audiences who experiences nutritional confusion, in a corporate environment, I usually get 40% of the hands go up. When I ask newly graduating nutritionists, 90% of the hands go up. You see, we are drowning in a deluge of nutritional information that is conflicting and confusing. And what we need now is a conceptual approach. If you read Daniel H. Pink's A Whole New Mind, we've gone through the industrial age, the agricultural age, and the information age. Well, in the information age, that's where marketing, nutritional marketing, actually can confuse you. And it's twisted our relationship with food, so we don't even understand and relate to it in a natural way. So Return to Food is really about helping you understand this. If you had a choice for dinner tonight and you're not a vegetarian, what would you choose? Chicken or an omelette? What would you suggest more Canadians have for dinner, chicken or an omelette? Chicken, absolutely. And our consumption reflects that. Over 50 kilos of chicken a year each Canadian is eating, on average. Given the same choice, if they have to go out in nature and go and find an egg to make an omelette, or go catch, kill, pluck, disembowel, bleed, and prepare a chicken, guess how many people become a vegetarian? It changes our relationship with food and nature. Okay, so the lethal recipe, nature's principle, the consumption concept are philosophies that I'm actually teaching people to help reset their mind and how they relate to food, their body, and the environment. Because when we get it in a much more natural way and we can make choices on that, we are not victims of nutritional marketing, a billion-dollar dairy industry, meat industry, wheat industry. Okay, we make powerful decisions, and then we start to understand what it is we're actually choosing food and why we're choosing it. We think it's for taste, but it's actually for the drug-like feelings that we give, that it gives our body. Remember when I talked about the lethal recipe and how we take opium sap and turn it into cocaine? The same thing happens with sugar. And when you eat sugar that's refined, it lights up the brain the same way cocaine does, only now we know that it is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And when I go into homes and I do lifestyle makeovers and audits, or I show people how to do this for a living at the Return to Food Academy, I can promise you that most homes have the lethal recipe, and children are being diagnosed with diseases that are completely preventable and reversible by actually returning to nature. See, it's not just what we eat that's important. It's how we eat. The social context in which we eat is as powerful as what we eat. Believe it or not, I'd much rather have a greasy bowl of noodles with people who are kind, positive, loving, and upbuilding than to have the most gourmet, nutritiously prepared meal with people who are angry, depressed, and negative. And one time I was giving a presentation for the Victoria Police in Australia, and this woman came up to me and she goes, "Yeah, well, how do you get all those happy, smiley people to have lunch with you?" I was like, backing away, so glad she wasn't a sworn-in member with a pistol. And I said, "You become one. And I said, I'm not saying this from a place of self-righteousness. I'm saying it from experience, because I used to be that grumpy, grouchy person that no one wanted to eat with. And when I started to learn how to hyper-nourish myself, the information that I got around nutrition stuck. Because when I was a nutritionist just working with people on the nutrition, there was a certain amount of success they had. But when I started to move more intuitively working with them, they had even more success. And when I started working with them with the concepts of hyper-nourishment, so nourishing mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, cutting out the toxicity mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and starting to hyper-nourish the body, people made dramatic and drastic changes. And even more important than that, no matter who they were, whether they were celebrities, elite athletes on television, or billionaires, they got into the kitchen and cooked with me, because that is where the magic happens. When you learn how to source and prepare your own food from nature, magic happens. And so it's not just about delicious recipes. It's not just about nutrition. It is about connecting, because we are meant to eat together. So combining all of those things creates an amazing, powerful change for our body. And if I can just, do I have a second to just finish? I want to read a poem I wrote called We're Meant to Eat Together. So eat with people who you love and respect, who love and respect you, who love and respect food. Eat with people who are learning to cook with sincerity of heart, and children are a wonderful example of this. Eat with all your senses, masticating textures, sensuous aromas, and tasting lascivious flavors, luscious flavors, sorry. Eat with people who aren't afraid to make noises like ooh, and ah. They'll all have what she's having noises. Yeah. Eat with people who aren't afraid to make a mess, lick their fingers, clean out the bowl, and eat with their hands. Who remembers licking up the bowl when their mother made a cake? Yeah. Okay. It's proven to be more satisfying. Eat after the perspiration of a rigorous jog, an invigorating walk, or in the lusty afterglow of a roll in the hay. It's much healthier than a cigarette. Eat with people who laugh, joke, and smile a lot. People who tell wonderful stories. People who are generous and share, full stop. Eat with your fondest memories, triumphs or tragedy, and memories of love. Eat with people who love to cook and eat, people who are gracious and grateful, people who are non-judgmental and forgiving, who can see both sides of the story and still have an opinion. Eat with people who love life and are genuinely interested in you and the world around you. And please, when you do all these things with all these people, invite me to dinner.